The conference room felt like a pressure cooker. I sat across from Dan Whitley, my manager, as he explained his brilliant plan to cut costs on the Virion Systems account. My stomach twisted. This would destroy our relationship with our biggest client. Dan, this is a mistake, I said, keeping my voice steady. Virion specifically requested the premium service package. If we downgrade them now, you're easily replaceable, Jenna. Dan cut me off, his voice echoing through the silent room. Don't overplay your role here. The words hit me like a slap. Around the table, 6 other executives stared at their laptops, pretending they hadn't heard. The massive screen behind Dan displayed our quarterly numbers, with Virion Systems accounting for 32% of our revenue. I looked directly at him, then at that glowing screen. We'll see, I said quietly. Dan's smirk widened. What's that supposed to mean? I gathered my papers and stood up. Nothing, just, we'll see. As I walked toward the door, I heard him chuckle. Drama queen, he muttered to someone next to him. I paused at the doorway, my hand on the handle, and turned back. Dan was already moving on to the next agenda item, dismissing me like I was nothing. I found myself in the emergency stairwell, my hands shaking. Not from hurt, from pure rage. 3 years I'd worked at Tyrex Digital, 3 years building relationships, solving problems, making Dan look good. And this was how he saw me. My phone buzzed against the cold concrete steps. A personal message lit up my screen. Lena Knox, VP at Virion Systems. Jenna, why weren't you in our strategy meeting today? Dan showed up instead and seemed completely lost. Is everything okay? My heart pounded. Virion had scheduled a crucial integration planning session. Dan must have attended without telling me. I typed back quickly. Dan said he'd handle it. How did it go? The response came instantly. Terrible. He didn't know any of our background or current projects. We had to reschedule. This isn't like you guys at all. I stared at the message. Dan had probably told upper management it went perfectly. He always did. I'm sorry, Lena. Can we set up a call tomorrow? Absolutely. But Jenna, we specifically work with you for a reason. Please don't let them sideline you again. I screenshot the conversation and saved it to a new folder on my phone. Evidence. The next morning, Lena didn't waste time with pleasantries. She called Dan's direct line at exactly 9 a.m. I could hear her voice through his office walls. We don't want to deal with anyone but Jenna, she snapped. Yesterday was a complete waste of everyone's time. Your guy had no idea what he was talking about. Dan's voice got louder as he tried to explain. Jenna's actually transitioning to other accounts. I'll be handling Virion moving forward. Absolutely not. Lena's voice cut through the office like a knife. Jenna built this relationship from scratch. She knows our systems, our people, our goals. We're not starting over with someone new. I pretended to work at my desk, typing random words while straining to hear every detail. Other coworkers were starting to notice the commotion. I understand your concern, Dan said, his tone getting desperate. But I assure you, I'm fully capable of. Put Jenna back on our account, or we'll need to reconsider our partnership with Tyrex. The line went dead. Through the glass wall, I watched Dan's face turn red. He slammed his phone down, then looked up to see me watching. Our eyes met for a split second before he looked away. My phone buzzed. Lena again. Hope that helps. Dan called me into his office an hour later. His fake smile couldn't hide the anger in his eyes. So, I've been thinking about your career development, he started, shuffling papers on his desk. I'm reassigning you to the Morrison account. It's a great opportunity for growth. Morrison was our smallest client. Everyone knew it was career suicide. What about Virion? I asked. I'll be taking that over personally. It's time you learn to work with different types of clients. His smirk returned. Let's see if you're really as irreplaceable as you think you are. I nodded slowly. When does this start? Immediately. I'll let Virion know about the transition today. Walking back to my desk, I opened my laptop and started a new email. The recipient, Marcus Webb, Virion's procurement director. I'd worked with him on contract renewals for 2 years. Hi Marcus, I typed. I wanted to give you a heads up about some potential changes to your account management. Would you have 15 minutes for a call this afternoon? Just want to make sure we're all aligned. I hit send before I could change my mind. Marcus replied within 10 minutes. Of course. 3 p.m. work? I looked over at Dan's office. He was on the phone, probably talking to Lena right now. Perfect, I typed back. The email arrived at 4:47 p.m., copied to half the executive team. The subject line made my heart race. Official notice, account management requirements. To whom it may concern, after yesterday's disappointing meeting and today's conversation with Dan Whitley, Virion Systems must clarify our position. If Jenna Arlow is not restored as our primary account lead within 48 hours, we will be forced to reconsider our contract with Tyrex Digital. Miss Arlow has been instrumental in our partnership's success. We will not accept a downgrade in service quality. Regards, Lena Knox, VP Strategic Partnerships, Virion Systems. My phone started ringing immediately. Sarah Chen, our COO. Jenna, please come to conference room A. Now. The room was packed. Sarah, 3 VPs, our legal counsel, and Dan, looking like he wanted to disappear into his chair. Can you explain this? Sarah asked, sliding a printed copy of Lena's email across the table. I glanced at Dan. His jaw was clenched tight. Virion wants continuity in their account management, I said carefully. We've built a strong working relationship over 3 years. This sounds like a threat, one of the VPs said. Dan finally spoke up. I think this shows how well I've trained Jenna to build client trust. It's actually a testament to my management. I blinked. He was taking credit for client loyalty, threatening to leave because of his incompetence. That night, I stayed late at the office. The building was quiet, except for the hum of computers and distant traffic. I opened a new document and titled it Contribution Record, Jenna Arlow. For the next 3 hours, I compiled everything. Client testimonials praising my work, email threads showing my problem solving, revenue reports highlighting accounts I'd grown, screenshots of Dan taking credit for my ideas in management meetings. The file grew to 47 pages. I drafted a resignation letter, clean and professional. Please accept this as my formal 2 weeks' notice. But I didn't send it. Not yet. My phone buzzed with a LinkedIn message from Gabe Morgan, my mentor from my previous company. He'd moved to Everest Group, Tyrex's biggest competitor. Saw some interesting industry chatter today. Everything okay over there? Coffee sometime this week? Gabe had always been straight with me. He'd supported my career when others overlooked me. I typed back, coffee sounds perfect. Still happy at Tyrex, but always good to catch up. I was lying about being happy, but I wasn't ready to admit that out loud. I saved my resignation letter in the same folder as my evidence file and closed my laptop. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but tonight I felt something I hadn't felt in months. I felt prepared. Dan's revenge was subtle, but effective. He stopped inviting me to department meetings. Emails about important decisions mysteriously never reached my inbox. When I asked about strategic planning sessions, he'd say they were postponed or just preliminary discussions. I was being frozen out, and everyone could see it. The first major mistake happened on a Tuesday. A software update was scheduled for 3 of our biggest clients, including Virion. Dan handled the communication himself, but forgot to mention the 2-hour maintenance window that would affect their morning operations. By 9 a.m., Virion systems were down. Their customer service team couldn't access any data. Lena was furious. How could you not warn us? She demanded during an emergency call. We've got customers on hold with no way to help them. Dan stumbled through an explanation about unexpected technical issues and communication gaps. I sat in the call, silent, watching him dig his hole deeper. This is exactly what I was worried about, Lena said. Jenna never would have let this happen. Dan's face reddened. After the call, he turned to me with venom in his voice. This happened because you didn't brief me properly on their systems. You told me I was off their account, I replied. Don't play dumb, Jenna. Everyone knows this was your fault. But Virion didn't see it that way. Within an hour, Lena had sent another email to our executive team, praising my quick response in helping resolve the crisis and requesting my immediate reinstatement. Gabe and I met at a small cafe downtown, away from the corporate district where we might run into colleagues. He looked good, confident, and relaxed in a way I remembered from our better days at the last company. You look tired, he said, stirring his coffee. Tyrex burning you out? I laughed, but it came out bitter. Something like that. Want to talk about it? For 30 minutes, I told him everything. Dan's undermining, the public humiliation, the client loyalty that was keeping me barely afloat. Gabe listened without interrupting. "Jenna," he said finally, "I've got an offer for you." He slid a business card across the table. "Everest Group. We're expanding our client strategy division. Full authority over relationship management, double your current salary, and equity options." My heart stopped. "Gabe? You don't have to answer now, but I've seen your work. I know what you can do when you're not fighting your own management." I picked up the card, running my thumb over the embossed logo. "There's something I need to finish first," I said. "Take your time. But Jenna, don't wait too long. People like you don't come around often." That night, I stared at my ceiling, turning the business card over in my hands. I could leave. I could escape Dan's toxicity and start fresh, but part of me wasn't ready to run. I requested a private meeting with Sarah, our COO. Her office was pristine. Awards, company photos, everything positioned to project success and stability. "What can I do for you, Jenna?" I opened my laptop and pulled up my contribution file. "I need to share some concerns about my working relationship with Dan." For 20 minutes, I walked her through everything. The credit stealing, the exclusion from meetings, the pattern of undermining that was affecting client relationships. I showed her emails, testimonials, revenue data. Sarah nodded along, taking notes. When I finished, she was quiet for a long moment. "This is concerning," she said finally. "But Dan is one of our most senior managers. He's been with the company for 8 years. I understand that. I'm not asking you to fire him. I just want a fair working environment." "What do you suggest?" "Let me manage the Virion account directly. Remove me from Dan's supervision for client work." Sarah closed her notebook. "I appreciate you bringing this to me, Jenna, but we can't restructure departments based on personality conflicts. Dan is essential to our quarterly reporting process." My heart sank. "So nothing changes?" "Stay quiet for now," she said. "We can't lose Dan during quarterly reporting. After that, we'll revisit this." I walked out of her office feeling smaller than ever. Even with evidence, even with client threats, I was expendable. Dan wasn't. That evening, I called Gabe. "Can we talk more about that offer?" The final straw came on a Friday afternoon. I'd spent weeks preparing a comprehensive client retention strategy for our quarterly review. The presentation covered 3 major accounts, including detailed analysis of Virion's expansion plans. I was scheduled to present it Monday morning to the executive team. Saturday evening, I got a text from my coworker Maya. "Did you see the agenda for Monday's meeting? Looks like Dan is presenting your client strategy." My blood turned cold. I logged into our system and found my presentation in Dan's shared folder, with his name on every slide. He'd taken my work completely. Monday morning, I watched Dan deliver my analysis to the executive team. He stood confidently at the front of the room, clicking through slides I'd created, discussing insights I'd developed. "This retention strategy could increase our annual revenue by 15%, he said, gesturing at charts I'd built from scratch. During the Q&A, Sarah asked about specific client feedback. Dan fumbled, clearly not knowing the details behind the data. After the meeting, I confronted him in the hallway. "That was my presentation." He looked around, then stepped closer. "Prove it." "I have timestamps on every file. From what I understand, you're part of my team. Teamwork is collaborative, Jenna. Maybe you're not ready for senior-level thinking." That afternoon, my phone rang. Marcus from Virion's procurement team. "Jenna, we need to talk. Someone sent us a presentation with our confidential data. The problem is, it came from someone named Dan Whitley, and we never authorized him to access these details." The fallout was immediate and devastating. Virion's legal team fired off a formal complaint to Tyrex's executives within hours. They claimed breach of contract, specifically, unauthorized sharing of confidential strategic information. I was called into an emergency meeting with Sarah, our legal counsel, and Dan. How did our clients' confidential data end up in a presentation shared outside their approval process? Sarah demanded. Dan pointed at me. "Jenna prepared the initial research. She must have included information she shouldn't have." "That's not true," I said calmly. "I never shared confidential data without proper authorization." I pulled out my phone and opened my evidence folder. I can provide the complete email chain showing how I obtained permission for each piece of information. I can also show timestamps proving when the presentation was created and by whom. For the next hour, I walked them through my meticulous documentation. Every email, every approval, every version control record. The evidence was overwhelming. Dan had taken my presentation and shared it without understanding the confidentiality protocols I'd followed. Dan, Sarah said slowly, you're suspended pending a full review. He stood up so fast his chair hit the wall. This is ridiculous. I'm being blamed for a team member's mistake. The review starts tomorrow, Sarah said firmly. Please collect your personal items and leave your access cards with security. As Dan walked out, he shot me a look of pure hatred. This isn't over, he whispered. I just nodded. I know. Dan came to my desk after hours that Tuesday. The office was nearly empty, just a few developers working late in the back corner. He looked tired, defeated. I didn't mean for it to escalate like this, he said quietly. I saved my work and turned to face him. What did you think would happen? I thought you'd just accept the reassignment and move on. I never expected the client reaction. You called me easily replaceable in front of our entire management team. He ran his hands through his hair. I was frustrated. The pressure from above, you don't understand what it's like. Actually, I do. I've been dealing with pressure too, just from a different direction. Look, if I talk to Sarah, maybe we can work something out. Get back to how things were. I studied his face. For the first time since I'd known him, Dan looked vulnerable. Human. That's the problem, I said slowly. You never saw me as someone worth worrying about. You only care now because there are consequences. I opened my laptop and deleted the resignation letter I'd been drafting for weeks. Then I opened a new document and started typing a different one. What are you doing? Writing my notice, I said without looking up. 2 weeks. Dan watched me type for a moment, then walked away without another word. I called Gabe that night from my apartment, looking out at the city lights. I'm ready to talk seriously about that offer. I was hoping you'd say that. What changed? I realized I was fighting for something that was never going to change. Some environments are just toxic, no matter how hard you try to fix them. When can you start? I'll give my notice tomorrow, 2 weeks from then. Perfect, Jenna, you're gonna love it here. We actually value people who build relationships and solve problems. What about the salary details? $85,000 base, plus performance bonuses that could add another 20. Full benefits, 3 weeks vacation, and equity options after your first year. I nearly dropped the phone. That was almost double my current salary. Are you serious? Dead serious. We need someone who understands client psychology, not just account management, someone who can build real partnerships. After we hung up, I sat in my kitchen and wrote my formal resignation letter. Clean, professional, final. Please accept this as my formal 2 weeks notice. My last day will be Friday, November 17th. I appreciate the opportunities I've had at Tyrex Digital. I read it 3 times, then saved it to send tomorrow morning. My phone buzzed with a text from Gabe. Clear runway. We're ready. I smiled for the first time in weeks. I submitted my resignation to HR at 9 a.m. sharp, then sent a copy to Sarah. By 10 a.m., I was on a call with Lena at Virion. I wanted to let you know personally. I'm leaving Tyrex in 2 weeks. Oh no, what happened? I found a better opportunity, but I wanted to discuss the transition for your account. Jenna, where are you going? Everest Group. They've offered me a client strategy director position. There was a long pause. Well, this is interesting timing. What do you mean? We've been reviewing our vendor relationships anyway. Our contract with Tyrex is up for renewal in January, and honestly, the service quality has been declining. I felt my pulse quicken. I hope you find a good solution. Actually, where you go, we go. Expect transition paperwork from our procurement team by the end of the week. After the call, I sat staring at my computer screen. Virion was following me to Everest. Their annual contract was worth nearly $2 million. I forwarded Lena's email to Tyrex's legal department with a simple note, FYI, thought you should know about this client decision. Then I called Gabe. We need to talk about onboarding a major client. The emergency meeting was called for 3 p.m. Sarah, the CEO, 3 VPs, and our legal counsel crowded into the main conference room. I was invited, obviously, since the crisis centered around my departure. Jenna, Sarah started, we've received Virion's transition notice. This puts us in a very difficult position. I understand. The CEO, Robert Manning, leaned forward. What would it take for you to stay? I looked around the room. 2 weeks ago, these same people had dismissed my concerns about Dan's management style. We're prepared to offer you a significant retention bonus, Robert continued. $50,000 plus a promotion to senior account director. And Dan, Sarah shifted uncomfortably. Dan's situation is still under review, so he keeps his position? He's an experienced manager. I already accepted another position, I said quietly. I start at Everest in 2 weeks. Robert's face darkened. Jenna, you're putting us in an impossible situation. Virion represents 32% of our annual revenue. I'm not putting you anywhere. I'm leaving for a better opportunity. What if we matched their offer? Salary, benefits, everything? I smiled for the first time all day. They didn't just offer me money, they offered me respect. I stood up and gathered my notepad. I already said yes to someone who respected me the first time. The room was silent as I walked out. My first day at Everest felt like stepping into sunlight after months underground. The office was bright, modern, and buzzing with productive energy. Gabe introduced me to the team. 12 smart, collaborative people who actually seemed excited about their work. Jenna's going to be leading our client experience redesign, Gabe announced during the morning meeting. She's bringing some serious relationship-building expertise. I spent the morning reviewing Everest's current client portfolio and strategy documents. Everything was organized, transparent, and focused on long-term partnerships rather than short-term revenue grabs. At lunch, Gabe pulled me aside. How was the first morning? Refreshing, I said honestly. It's nice to work somewhere that actually values client relationships. Speaking of which, I have some news. Virion sent over their transition timeline. They want to start migrating services next month. That fast? Lena specifically requested you as their primary contact. She's also been talking to her network about our services. That afternoon, Virion issued a press release announcing their new partnership with Everest Group. The statement specifically mentioned their confidence in our client-focused approach. By 5 p.m., my phone was buzzing with LinkedIn notifications. Industry colleagues were congratulating me on the move and asking questions about Everest's services. At Tyrex, according to Maya, the board called an emergency meeting to discuss damage control. Their biggest client was gone, and it was directly tied to losing me. The industry news broke 3 days later. TechWatch, a major trade publication, ran a feature story titled Client Loyalty in Crisis: How Employee Treatment Affects Customer Retention. The article didn't name specific companies, but the details were unmistakable. It described a mid-sized consulting firm that lost its largest client after forcing out a key relationship manager through hostile management practices. I was quoted anonymously. When companies prioritize politics over people, clients notice. Relationships are built on trust, and that trust extends to how companies treat their teams. The piece went viral in our industry. By Friday, I'd received over 40 LinkedIn messages from colleagues sharing similar experiences and praising the article. Then the bombshell dropped. Someone leaked internal Tyrex emails to TechWatch, including Dan's messages calling me just admin with a title, and discussing ways to manage her expectations downward. The publication ran a follow-up piece with the leaked communications as evidence of toxic workplace culture affecting client relationships. A reporter called me for comment. Jenna, would you like to respond to these leaked emails? I don't look backward, I told her. My focus is on building positive relationships moving forward. But privately, I was amazed. The truth was finally coming out, and I didn't have to be the one exposing it. The phone calls started Monday morning. First, Bradley Industries, one of Tyrex's most stable clients. Their operations director wanted to discuss Everest's services. We've worked with Tyrex for 4 years, he explained during our coffee meeting. But lately, the service quality has been inconsistent. We keep hearing about account managers being reassigned without notice. Tuesday brought a call from Meridian Logistics. Thursday, it was Catalyst Solutions. By Friday, I was scheduling preliminary meetings with 3 potential clients who were reconsidering their current consulting relationships. Gabe, I said during our weekly check-in, we're going to need more staff. He grinned. Already on it. I've got interviews scheduled for next week. One of these prospects is worth $18 million annually. Which one? Catalyst Solutions. They're frustrated with constant turnover in their account management. That's exactly the kind of client we want. Someone who values stability and relationships over flashy presentations. That evening, I updated my growth projections for the department. If even half of these prospects converted, we'd triple our client base within 6 months. I emailed Gabe my analysis. Demand is higher than expected. We need to scale carefully to maintain service quality. His response came back within minutes. This is exactly what we hoped for when we hired you. Let's build something amazing. Meanwhile, Tyrex was struggling. Maya texted me updates that were equal parts satisfying and concerning. They assigned Jennifer Walsh to the Virion account, but she had no background on their systems. The handoff call was a disaster. Jennifer was competent, but she'd been thrown into an impossible situation with no preparation time. Virion ended their remaining contract today. Maya's next message read, "Complete termination. Legal is freaking out." I felt a mix of vindication and sadness. Virion had been a good client. They deserved better treatment than they'd received. But the drama wasn't over. Maya's final text made me laugh out loud. Dan is suing Tyrex for wrongful termination. Claims he was scapegoated for systemic management failures. His lawyer is arguing that upper management created the hostile environment. I had to admire the irony. Dan was essentially arguing that Tyrex's culture was so toxic that even managers couldn't succeed. The same argument I'd been making for months. The difference was, now it was public record in a lawsuit. I drafted a text to Maya. "How's everyone holding up over there?" "Scared. Robert is talking about layoffs. People are updating their resumes." I thought about my former colleagues. Good people trapped in a deteriorating situation. "Let me know if anyone wants to chat about opportunities," I replied. Dr. Patricia Hendricks had been my business strategy professor in college. When she invited me to speak at the National Client Relations Summit in Chicago, I almost said no. "Jenna, you've got a story that people need to hear," she said during our phone call. I agreed to speak about trust as currency, why client relationships follow people, not companies. The auditorium held 300 people. Once I started talking about genuine client partnerships, the words flowed naturally. "You can't fake caring about someone's success," I said. "Clients know the difference between transactional relationships and true partnerships." During Q&A, a woman asked, "How do you maintain client trust when your own management doesn't support you?" "Document everything," I replied. "Protect your relationships with honest communication. And sometimes, the best thing you can do for your clients is to find an environment where you can serve them better." The audience gave me a standing ovation. Afterward, a publisher approached me. "Ever thought about writing a book?" 6 months into my role at Everest, I proposed a comprehensive training program for client strategists focused on ethical relationship management and collaborative leadership. "We need to institutionalize what makes our client relationships successful," I explained to the leadership team. The program covered everything from active listening to conflict resolution, focusing on building genuine partnerships rather than just managing accounts. The program was so successful that Gabe mandated it for all new hires company-wide. "You've created something special here," he told me. "Other companies are asking about licensing this program." I was reviewing applications when I noticed a familiar name, Dan Whitley. My heart skipped. He was applying for a senior account manager position at Everest. I stared at his resume for a long time. On paper, he looked qualified, but I knew better. I scheduled a meeting with Gabe for the next morning. "There's something you should know about this applicant," I said, sliding Dan's resume across Gabe's desk. "This is the manager you mentioned? From Tyrex?" "Yeah. I need to be transparent. I have personal history with this candidate. What's your recommendation?" "He's competent technically, but has serious issues with collaborative leadership and treating team members with respect." Dan's interview was scheduled for Tuesday. The weekend before, he sent me a LinkedIn message. "Looking forward to potentially working together again." I didn't respond. Tuesday evening, Gabe knocked on my door. "How did it go?" He seemed genuinely humbled. Gabe said, but when we asked for examples of collaborative leadership, he couldn't provide concrete stories. His references were carefully worded. "What's the decision?" "We're passing. Not because of your history, but because he doesn't demonstrate the collaborative skills we need. 18 months later, I sat in Everest Group's boardroom with a new title, Vice President of Client Partnerships. Our client retention rate is now 97%, I reported. We've grown from 12 major clients to 38. Our revenue had tripled, largely driven by client referrals. What's driving this growth? Asked our CEO. Consistency. Clients know they're getting long-term partners, not just service providers. After the meeting, Gabe pulled me aside. Lena Knox called. Virion wants to expand internationally, and they want Everest to handle their global client experience strategy. That's huge. She specifically requested you. 15 countries, 2-year project, estimated value around $12 million. That afternoon, I called Lena. Talking with her felt like a conversation between old friends. Jenna, you've become our secret weapon, she said. Other companies promise partnership, but you actually deliver it. Last month, I drove past Tyrex's old building. The office space now housed a tech startup. Young, energetic people visible through the windows. I walked into the lobby. Maria, the receptionist, recognized me immediately. Jenna, I heard you've been doing amazing things at Everest. Thank you, Maria. How are things with the new tenants? Much better energy. These folks actually seem to enjoy their work. What happened to Tyrex? They downsized, lost too many clients. As I walked back to my car, I felt closure. That building had represented frustration and wasted potential. You're the one they said was replaceable, right? Maria had asked. That's me, I'd replied. But I realized something important. I'd never been replaceable. I'd just been in the wrong place. The right place values what you bring. The Tech Leadership Gala was held downtown, with 500 industry professionals celebrating excellence. I'd been nominated for Client Strategy Pioneer of the Year. When they called my name, I walked to the stage feeling grateful. You can replace a task. You can't replace trust, I said into the microphone. I talked about viewing clients as partners, not revenue sources. About building relationships that survive personnel changes. The best client strategies aren't about clever tactics, I continued. They're about genuinely caring whether your clients succeed. During the reception, I was approached by dozens of professionals sharing their stories. The most meaningful conversation came from Sarah, a young client strategist dealing with a credit-stealing manager. Your speech gave me hope, she said. I handed her my business card. The question is whether your current environment is cut out for you. The next morning, my inbox was full of mentorship requests from women who'd heard my speech and finally believed their voices mattered.